It was a midnight flight across the Atlantic. Air France Flight 447, bound from Rio de Janeiro
Welcome
to
aboard,
Paris.
Thank you.
228 people settled in for a quiet, overnight journey. But somewhere in the darkness, high above the ocean, the jet would disappear without a single distress call. On May 31, 2009, the Airbus A330 lifted off into humid tropical air. At the controls, Captain Marc Dubois, First Officer David Robert, and relief pilot Pierre-Cédric Bonan. Experienced men, trusted by hundreds of passengers asleep behind them. The aircraft climbed smoothly to cruising altitude, 35,000 feet. Autopilot engaged, engines steady. Hours passed in silence as the jet sliced through the night toward Europe. But ahead, a wall of storm clouds loomed, the intertropical convergence zone, where warm air from both hemispheres collides in violent chaos. Every pilot knows these storms: towering thunderheads, turbulence, ice. Flight 447 entered the storm and into the unknown. At 2:10 a.m., tiny ice crystals began to form on the aircraft's pitot tubes, the sensors that measure airspeed. For seconds, then minutes, the readings became erratic, and then nothing. The pitot tubes froze solid. The autopilot disconnected. A chime sounded. In the cockpit, warning lights flashed. Bonan grabbed the controls. Without clear airspeed data, the flight computers could no longer help him. The jet was now entirely in the pilot's hands. Bonan, startled, pulled back on the stick. The nose began to rise. The aircraft climbed sharply into thinner air, and its speed dropped fast. The stall warning blared, "Stall, stall," but the crew didn't recognize it for what it was. In the darkness, with no horizon, no external reference, they believed the aircraft was falling too quickly. They kept pulling back, fighting an illusion. The A330's wings lost lift. The jet entered a deep aerodynamic stall, its engines roaring, but its body sinking like a stone. The captain rushed back into the cockpit. "What's happening?" he shouted. Neither co-pilot could give a clear answer. The instruments disagreed, alarms screamed, and the altitude plummeted. They were at 38,000 feet, then 30, then 20. The stall warning stopped, confusing them further. It had gone silent only because the plane was falling too slowly for it to detect airflow. Bonan continued to pull back on the stick. The nose stayed high, its engines straining. "Climb, climb," he cried, not realizing the plane was already falling. The captain yelled, "No, nose down!" But it was too late. At 2:14 a.m., just 4 minutes after the first warning, Air France Flight 447 hit the Atlantic Ocean. Everyone on board was killed. 228 lives gone in an instant. For years, the wreckage lay hidden deep beneath the waves, 4,000 meters below. Search teams scanned the ocean floor for nearly 2 years before finding the black boxes in 2011. When investigators finally listened, what they heard was confusion, silence, and disbelief in the cockpit's final seconds. The data revealed the truth. The pitot tube icing had caused the autopilot to disengage, a manageable failure. But the pilots, disoriented by the sudden warnings and unreliable instruments, had pulled the aircraft into a stall they never recognized. The A330 fell from the sky, perfectly intact, powerless against the laws of physics. The investigation forced sweeping changes. Airbus redesigned pitot systems for high-altitude ice resistance. Pilot training around the world was restructured to include stall recovery at cruising altitude. and airlines learned that automation can never replace the need for clear understanding and hand-flying skill. The legacy of Flight 447 is not just about tragedy, it's about humility. Even the most advanced aircraft can fail if the human behind the controls doesn't understand what the machine is truly doing. Technology may assist, but it must never isolate. Air France Flight 447 will forever remind us. Above the clouds, in darkness and storm, the bond between pilot and machine must remain unbroken, because when that connection is lost, the sky itself can turn against us.